Welcome to the September edition of the CRD in Context. My first guest is Maja Tait, Mayor of Sooke and a CRD Director. So thanks for your time today, Maja. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So Mayor Tait, we may as well start with the obvious. Well, maybe not so obvious to our viewers, but congratulations on being pregnant.
Thank you very much.
And you said that the electorate shouldn't have concerns about your absence while you're off having your child. As you say, our council is capable, our staff is competent, and our strategic priorities are in order. And I am replaceable.
Yes.
Okay, it's unusual to hear a politician actually say, I am replaceable. Several in the CRD are onto their third, fourth, or fifth terms. So, given the new 4-year terms, should we have term limits?
I think that's up to the individual, or the voters actually. In every election, there's always different candidates that come forward, and the voters will pick the best person that they feel represents them. And when the time's up, the person isn't back in office.
So if you're replaceable, though, if you're replaceable but you leave, is there a unique set of skills or perspectives that council will lose, or is everything about you replaceable?
Well, I think it's the case with leadership. It's a shared model. The mayor is one of 7 people, or on the case of the CRD, we're on a board of 24. Everyone contributes the best that they have, and I think the voters and the town is represented by a diverse set of views. And so I think everyone on our council anyway shares and respects one another's viewpoints and is always considerate of when a particular person is absent from a meeting. And it's a shared leadership model. The mayor's one vote in the end.
So you were recently awarded the Leadership Victoria Alumni Award.
Yes.
Okay. Which recognizes a graduate of the Leadership Victoria program who continues to demonstrate outstanding leadership and service in the Victoria community. So there's no mention there of, it's not shared with other people. That leadership award went specifically to you. So how do you take a process that tends to be identified or attached to one individual and really share it?
Well, I think through my experience, both through work and through volunteerism, a job done is one where you can step away, it's not attached to you, and everything continues to happen. I think it's dangerous if the job fails when a person goes away for vacation or has medical or any type of illness or absence, that things don't continue. So when you empower other people around you and there's a shared philosophy, you know that the work's going to be done. I go on vacation, I don't take my mobile device with me, and I know that things are in place. So it's a matter of being prepared. I'm a Girl Guide at nature, so you're prepared. And you know that when you come back, things will work themselves out. It's confidence in the people around you as well.
So then what's the difference between being a leader and being a manager? Because what you just described there sounds to me a lot like being a really good manager. As you say, you've got people around you, they know their jobs, they know their roles and responsibilities, and you as the head manager can go off and nothing changes.
Sure. Well, leadership is about having a vision that inspires and motivates other people to share in that vision and to also bring forward their skills and expertise.
So in terms of sharing it, in terms of having the vision and making sure, taking steps that it gets shared, that's what would differentiate a leader from a really good manager?
Well, I think that there's a bit of both. Managing is you're managing a project, but in terms of council business, we have staff that are capable of looking after the day-to-day administrative pieces. Leadership is about setting a vision and having other people recognize it and support it and moving towards that vision.
So in terms of tapping into that energy that's out there.
That's right.
And mobilizing it.
And the community is supportive of it as well. And so I think it's, in some ways, everyone is pulling in the same direction. I mean, we may disagree sometimes on how we get there, but that gets hashed out through the democratic process. And in the end, council's decision and the resolution is the one that's going to move us forward.
So a shared approach to leadership, is that a model that's going to work in all situations, or are there a particular set of circumstances that may require less sharedness, and basically the buck would, stop with you, and fall on your shoulders.
Well, it's certainly what happened if there's a call that has to be made and there's a decision that has to be made in the essence of moving forward, to move it that way. But I try to be as open as I can with members of council so that they understand what's going on and feel included in that. I've seen in the past where decisions are made and people are excluded, and then you end up having to clean up and repair and spend a lot of time sort of reflecting or defending and repairing, and you don't get anywhere with that. So sometimes it's easier just to take a pause, get everybody on the same page, come to a consensus and move forward that way. It's stronger in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. It is stronger in the end, but you know, it's what's the trick to getting there? I mean, the way that you speak, it sounds easy.
It's time and patience, and I think that we've sometimes postponed making decisions so that members of council have the information that they need, that they're comfortable with it, and if it's necessary to take some extra time to get additional reports or facts. In the end, some people will still disagree, but at least they feel that all the due diligence has been done, and I think everyone so far has really respected the democratic process, with the majority prevailing.
Right. At the end of the day,
Yep.
it's the majority prevailing. So you do whatever you can to make sure, as you say, they have the necessary information. Due diligence has been done, but at the end of the day, it's a majority rule.
And everyone's viewpoints are shared and expressed, and so then in the end, everyone feels they've done their best to come to that decision.
Yeah. And another word that came up around your election was the word dialogue, and it seems something that's important to you.
Yes.
So what exactly is dialogue? Like, how is it a unique communication process?
Well, it's just talking to the everyday person that's impacted by the decisions that we make. We have significant infrastructure work happening right now in the middle of town, and although everyone is, for the most part, has been very supportive of the creation of a town center, it is impacting businesses and residents. And so it's having the conversation, like, how does it hit somebody who's trying to get to work at various hours of the day, or the business owner that's trying to keep their doors open and to keep the steady flow of customers. And so rather than just staying in the council chambers all the time or in the municipal hall, it's getting out in the day-to-day activities to see how what we're doing is impacting our community.
Okay, so you gather that information and you make sure that they're given the necessary information so they can adjust accordingly, like you say, if there's a construction project going on.
And social media has also been very helpful because a lot of people will share their views on what's happening. It's a way to also remain connected and to see things that we normally may not have thought of at the time.
So so dialogue is basically giving the information that people require to get on with their lives and adjust accordingly, but also getting back from them any concerns or issues they have.
And the feedback, it's a two-way exchange, really.
Okay. So in terms of another one that comes up that's associated with you as a politician that you seem to hold in high value is relationship building. So tell me about that process.
Well, I think every community is made up of connections amongst people, relationships through work, through volunteerism, especially in Sooke. We're such a small community and with a very strong volunteer spirit, and it's just building different relationships with different people and understanding just what makes our community so wonderful.
And so if you do that, then that's how you approach relationship building, making sure that you understand them and they understand you?
Well, I think it's a sense of empathy too, understanding where different people's lives, how different people have their lives, and accepting the diversity within our community as well.
So you were backed by the outgoing mayor as a peacemaker and consensus builder and someone who can bring people together. So is the key there, what's the key to doing that? Is it about dialogue? Is it about relationship building? What is it that you have that some other politicians don't seem to have because they don't seem to be as successful in this regard as you are?
I don't know about others, but for years I volunteered as a crisis line worker for the Victoria Sexual Assault Center, and it was handling calls that come in over the telephone, and you have to find a way to understand what the person is dealing with, and also how to empathize with the situation, and to sort of get resources to the person as quickly as you can. And I think in the end, but also not carry their problem with you, so you develop a sense of detached empathy, a willingness to help, and strong active listening skills. And I think that's assisted me in finding ways to, I can just sort of understand where different people are coming from. And often there's no right or wrong, it's just a different perspective, a different opinion on something.
Yeah, so I would suspect that that particular skill set, having successfully worked at a a sexual assault crisis hotline, would be unique. I can't imagine that any other, let's say, politicians in the capital region would bring that to the table.
Maybe not, or they may have acquired the skill in a different setting.
Well, yes, but I mean, the vision that comes to my mind is something that truly is, a personal crisis for an individual. And as you say, you have to bring empathy to the table right away, and yet you can't lose yourself in it. It has to be, as you say, a detached empathy.
And also to remain calm, because getting excited only will potentially excite the caller. It's not helping the situation. So it's very important to remain grounded all the time.
And so that's what you bring when you, not just that, but that seems to be a real foundation piece for you when it comes to engaging with other people.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah.
At least yeah.
The other thing that you were quoted as saying is that when you start exploring, I guess it was when you're thinking about getting into politics, it says when you start exploring what civic politics does, what it means to people's lives, I started thinking maybe that's something I should be doing. So what does civic politics mean to people's lives?
It's the day-to-day interaction when you think of someone wanting to start up a business, open up childcare facilities, put a fence in their yard, bring in a secondary suite for additional income, perhaps convert part of their suite to allow for additional family. These are all decisions that are made based on zoning or land use that happen at the civic level, as well as there are property taxes, which roads, how you're going to get around your town, what sort of community organizations or events get funding that you may want to volunteer or be a part of. And I mean, we all pay taxes on all different levels. This one is the one bill that comes to homeowners once a year. But also just civic, it's where you live. It's your civic engagement, your pride in the community that you live in.
So with that mix that you've just described there, the answer would seem to be, what does civic politics mean to people's lives? The short answer would be everything, because I can't think of anything you left out of that list there.
It's possible. Even like what kind, can you put boulevard trees, or what type of tree, or what kind of flower you can have in your front yard, or even what sort of, can you feed the birds or the wildlife year round? There's a number of things, and it all hits you at a municipal level.
So it's about much more than just garbage being picked up and you turn your tap on and the water comes out.
Absolutely it is, yes.
So do you think that civic politics gets kind of, I don't know, it doesn't get the respect due to it because it's at the lowest level, as opposed to, say, a provincial MLA or a federal MP? The way you've just described it, it's got everything that's of significance to people in their day-to-day living.
I think it gets lost.
Lost.
Yeah, with just the greater issues that we all face as Canadians, as British Columbians, it can just get lost at times, for sure.
Yeah, it just seems to, as you've just described it, it just, as I say, is pretty inclusive and very, very important. There's nothing in there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The Sooke was one of 5 municipalities without a referendum question on the November ballot regarding a provincially funded review of governance or amalgamation. So why didn't you have a question of that nature on your ballot?
We discussed it at council at the time, and we also had 2 other questions going forward on our referendum that we felt were very meaningful to our community. In terms of amalgamation, there was a candidate that ran with the Amalgamation Yes platform to sort of bring that perspective forward. And we're not remote, but we're detached from the rest of the municipalities. And I think to amalgamate Sooke into the greater community would be of detriment to Sooke.
My understanding of what the other municipalities that have gone forward with now is a governance study, a review of
Yes.
governance, and it's going to be provincially funded, right? And so it just seems, why would you pass on a provincially funded review of governance, in the area to establish an evidence base? So if you wanted to make a strong case for not amalgamating, it would provide you with it, and/or you could use the same evidence base to maybe make a case for
Well, at the time,
amalgamation.
there was no mention of provincial funding. This year, though, I have met with Minister Oakes to talk about Sooke's position with amalgamation and had a great conversation with her. But last year, we got sort of a form letter sent to our municipality, and that was really about it. So, I mean, if folks are really serious about amalgamating Sooke, maybe you should drive out and make that pitch to council.
Okay. So as a CRD director, you're a voice of one,
Yes.
and you're not involved in the Core Area Liquid Waste Management Committee.
No.
And you say in such a way that would lead me to believe that you're glad you're not on the Core Area Liquid Waste Management Committee.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We do have our own system out in Sooke that council will be making decisions on the years to come. But yes, we are not connected to the core system.
And that's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
Okay. This may be absolutely nothing to it, but again, one thing that was mentioned when you were elected was that you were going to head up a council with 4 women, and you were sort of sometimes mentioned in the same breath as Mayor Barb Desjardins of Esquimalt, who heads up a council with 5 women, right?
Yes.
Is there anything to that?
I think it just represents that Sooke has always had strong women in leadership roles. Long before we incorporated as a municipality, regional directors were female and sort of matriarchs of the community that really kept the community moving. Really strong female pioneer history as well through the Sauk Nation as well. So I think it's just representative of our unique population and our unique community.
Well, Mayor Tait, I wish I had more time, but I don't, and I want to thank you very much for coming in today.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. That concludes part 1 of the CRD in Context. Welcome to part 2 of the CRD in Context. My guest is Saanich Councillor and CRD Director Susan Brice. Thanks for your time today, Councillor Brice.
Pleasure to be here, John.
So, Councillor, you wear a number of hats, so let's start with that of Councillor in Saanich. And John Schmuck is chairman of an organization that represents about 16 Saanich neighborhood associations. Last month he said that he hopes Saanich Council and staff will soon bury the hatchet on the friction over chief administrative officers and focus on district business. So as a councillor, how does it feel to sort of be publicly admonished by somebody who heads up 16 or is a spokesperson for 16 community associations?
Well, I've had a conversation with John since that article, and in many respects I agree with him. I think that the public are keen on Saanich Council moving ahead. In actual fact, other than the drama that you sometimes see in the media, if you actually took a look at the record of Saanich Council over the last 8-9 months, there have been some very key decisions made, generally speaking unanimously, sometimes with a variety of opinions. But I think what John is referring to is perhaps some personal relationships, and sometimes that does take time, working with people, building trust, and sort of over time you start to feel comfortable with each other.
Okay. But when you're criticized, when a critic offers up his or her opinion, How do you assess the legitimacy of someone's critique of, say, your own individual governance or the performance of governance by the council as a whole? Are there certain criteria that you say, well, that's a pretty legitimate criticism, as opposed to, that isn't?
You know, I think all of us in our lives do that. I mean, your radar is up and you're assessing out what information is coming into you. Some of it you take in and some of it you jettison, and ultimately you come up with a position. I respect, for instance, John Schmuck, and so anything he contributes, I receive in a very sort of positive way. But I think as well, John would admit that, he's also, to some extent, working off information that are his perceptions as well, or his impressions, and sometimes all of us don't really know just exactly what is going on.
Yeah, so the degree of information that they bring to the table is going to be one consideration, but the fact that he has such it's a significant role in the neighborhood to head up. So do people of that stature, if you will, tend to be listened to more than others who might not have that stature, but be worth listening to maybe on other criteria?
Well, I guess each of us makes judgments about who we're going to listen to over time. I mean, there's all kinds of advice coming to all of us all the time. And I guess one of the things that you learn is to value good advice, question your own position on things, either conclude that you're on the right track or modify. I mean, that's, I think, an ongoing process that all of us, no matter what we're doing, we're constantly sussing out new information that's coming to us and drawing some conclusions.
So in the November 8th, in the November election, 8 municipalities had a referendum ballot question regarding a provincially funded review of governance and/or amalgamation. Saanich's question asked about support for a community-based review of the governance structure and policies within Saanich and our partnerships with the region. Is that a different kind of question than was asked by the other municipalities? I realize that they were all slightly different questions, but this one struck me as being particularly different because it had that word, a community-based review.
It also had the word governance, which you will notice is becoming very she now. Governance is the word that's being used by all, including the provincial review.
As opposed to
amalgamation.
Okay.
Certainly as we came up to the November election, the strongest voice for a consideration was the amalgamation yes voice. And we had really not a lot of contact from citizens sort of driving that agenda for us to consider. But we as a council did feel that there was an appetite for an opportunity to measure some, or weigh in some kind of position. So we drafted that wording, ourselves. It didn't come from anywhere. It basically said that we wanted to look at how Saanich operates, both within the boundaries of Saanich, and also how we work with the neighboring communities, either in some kind of a structured, formalized fashion, or in more shared services, but to realize that we are just one, a very large municipality, but just one within the region.
So the other ones have gone forward with a letter to the province, the other 7, asking for a provincially funded governance review. And Saanich is going to be will they be writing a similar letter?
Well, interestingly enough, we were asked to send a letter, but prior to Saanich sending a letter, we were invited by Minister Oakes to come and meet with her. So there was a couple of weeks there where a variety of councillors and mayors met with the minister. And after our discussion with the minister, it was basically that it was now in her court, that the letters of request and such had sort of been superseded by this next meeting. So we talked with the minister about shared ideas, aspirations, goals, and she shared with us some of her thinking. And so then there was going to be the sort of next step was going to be to hear from the minister what sort of next steps might be. And then of course there was a change in the cabinet, and so Corley Oakes is no longer have that on her agenda. So we'll now wait to hear from Minister Fassbender how he decides he's going to proceed with that.
Do you expect that you'll get from the minister, given the support it seemed out there in these 8 municipalities for some sort of governance review, do you think you'll get the same sort of offer from this minister for a provincially funded review, governance review?
Just guessing, because
Okay.
I have no idea, but I think it's an idea that probably did have some roots that were deeper in government even than just Minister Oakes. I think it maybe was something I had heard that it was something that had been, I think, even supported from the Premier's office, in which case, if that is the
Okay.
case, then it would obviously carry on with the next minister.
Right. So you're just waiting for that to hear
That's
back
right.
from the new minister.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another issue that came up in your role as councillor was that Saanich Council recently voted to remove the 4-acre Alberg family farm from the agricultural land reserve in favor of a 16-house development. And you said that the death knell for the property's use for farming began decades ago, referring to the suburban growth around the property. So the context had changed some time ago. Why did it take so long for the decision-making and/or policy to sort of catch up to the change in context?
Well, I guess this was just a remnant of property, which, as it turned out, the owner of the day decided to keep it in the ALR, despite the fact that suburbia had grown up around it. And so for 20 or 25 years, it was a very large rural lot with a degree of farming, enough farming to maintain farm status for taxes, but no interest in development. And it was actually as a result of a family estate issue that it became then on the front burner for that family and for Saanich Council.
Okay, so then if this estate issue had arisen 10 years ago, more or less the same outcome would have probably occurred?
I would think so. I mean, I can only speculate.
Yeah.
But, and of course, the decision to have land in the agricultural land reserve or not rests with the Agricultural Land Commission,
Right.
not with Saanich Council. So all we can do is
Recommend.
we took it to third reading, and then it goes forward, and it's the Agricultural Land Commission that makes the determination.
Okay. So put your CRD hat on here.
Okay.
So in particular, the Victoria Regional Transit Commission, you're the chairperson of that commission, and they recently made a request for a 2 cents per litre increase in the gas tax to help put more buses on the road. And your argument, not so much argument, but your comment was that you want to get more people onto transit. You said it would cut road congestion and from single occupant vehicles, and it would also help reduce greenhouse gases. But the BC Taxpayers Federation protested that CRD drivers pay the 3rd highest taxes in North America as it is. And its spokesperson, Jordan Bateman, said fuel taxes should be directed to roads and road-related infrastructure and maintenance or to reduce taxes. So what'd you say to Mr. Bateman?
Well, Jordan Bateman has his agenda, has his point of view, and I've heard it over the years, and good for him. He's very forceful on that. I would remind him that in actual fact, under the legislation, there are certain levers that transit has. Transit has property taxes, transit has the fare box, what people pay when they go in, and transit has gas tax. That is not something the Commission has dreamt up. That is the legislation.
Those are the 3 revenue streams.
That's right, from local.
Local.
The province brings in money, but the local, those are the 3 revenue streams.
Right.
And so currently we are paying 3.5 cents a litre on gasoline in the Capital Regional District. And our pitch to the Minister was that that has not been altered for some time. We wanted an additional revenue for that, but we made a commitment that it would be going to an increase in service, that we wouldn't just try to fold it in to help cover off today's costs, that we would make a commitment to build the system, to increase the ridership. The province has a plan themselves to increase transit use, so we know that this dovetails with their plan.
I don't know about you, but maybe it's just the federal election campaign. But I feel like I'm exclusively pitched to as nothing more than a taxpayer, and never as a citizen, with some responsibility for the collective, if you will, such as my city, my region, my province, my country, or the planet. You ever get that feeling, in terms of being overly pitched to as a taxpayer and underly pitched to as a citizen with some responsibilities for the collective?
I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I'll ponder it. I think that I'm so caught up in local and regional issues that I am certainly interested in the province. I have worked and been elected provincially. I certainly follow the issues federally, but the things that really grab my attention are the ones that I have primary responsibility for.
Well, the contrast there for me is with respect to Mr. Bateman. He does a good job, I understand that. But his argument is, hey, this is about, if you're going to hit these people up for more taxes, those taxes should go directly back into more roads or road maintenance or overall reduction in taxes. Yet your argument was partially, in part, to say, no, we've got to up ridership on public transit, and at the end of the day, help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions is it's something that serves the collective,
right,
if you will, as opposed to just building more better roads.
Sure.
With the money, only serves a really small slice of the population.
Well, that's always one of the balances that you try to find between the kind of user pay concept and then the greater good.
Greater good.
And that there is definitely a balance for that, because we are greater than just the sum of the individuals going around purchasing our services. And in total, we hope that at the end of the day, we've made the entire community more robust and more healthy and more sustainable.
Okay, and as a CRD director, I think you also have possibly the unenviable position if you're the co-chair of the Core Area Liquid Waste Management Committee.
Proud of it.
Proud of it. Commonly known as the Sewage Committee. So recent developments include an extensive public engagement process both on the east side and the west side. And there's now been an appointment of an independent technical oversight panel. So are these signs of progress?
They are. I think that we're in a process now which we're in uncharted waters. We've not done it this way before. And so
by having the two independent select committees?
The two independent select committees, having a total technical oversight committee, helping to coordinate and to oversee the professionals that you hire to give you advice as well. The goal is to hopefully bring this to a successful conclusion, a project or projects that will meet the needs of the community. I have been involved in a number of iterations of the sewage issue in Greater Victoria. It's an issue that raises a lot of enthusiasm from some quarters and negativity from others. I look and I think it's important, but it's only one of the many issues that we deal with, and we're quite capable of doing it. We just need to stick with it and get on it and make sure that we take good advice, as we were talking about before, and move it forward. There,
as you say, there's a great many projects that the CRD is involved in. But But this one, it just seemed to, if there's any dysfunction within the CRD with respect to its structure or its decision-making process, this particular project seems to have surfaced that dysfunction in terms of the amount of money having been spent so far, the failed attempt to get the Minister of the Environment to get it onto McLaughlin Point. Are those signs of dysfunction, or are those just, what are those?
Well, I guess you can call it dysfunction. You can just call it a sort of a set of circumstances. For instance, the province gave the CRD the total responsibility to provide and come in on a project, but not the authority. So it's a balancing act, and it is that, I guess, respecting the local autonomy at the same time, once again back to the greater good. That's why the process this time, we've come at it a bit differently, hoping that if there is more buy-in at the beginning, that ultimately as you get yourself to that point, particularly for the land use issue, that you'll have a successful rezoning.
So the authority issue, as you mentioned there, and the respect for local autonomy issue, you think those are now well in hand?
Well, I think so. I mean, people being people, groups being groups, it's very dynamic.
That's a good word for it.
You can think you have it in hand, and then something, pops out in a different area. I'm very impressed with Lisa Helps. I enjoy working with her. She's a very can-do kind of person, and I think that she is giving our committee the leadership that is good for us at this stage. There's still a tremendous number of decisions to make, and she's a good leader.
Okay, that's a very positive note on which to end our conversation. I wish I had more time, but thanks for coming in today, Councillor Brice.
Pleasure, John.
Much appreciated. That concludes part 2 of the CRD in Context. My last guest today is Jack Etkin. He's the host of Citizens Forum, and I want to thank Jack for coming in today, giving us his time.
Thank you.
Okay, so Jack, as there's a federal election in October, I've recently interviewed a representative from each of the 3 main parties. I had them on as guests. The Liberal candidate from Saanich Gulf Islands, the Green Party's candidate in Esquimalt, and the NDP candidate from the new riding of Cowichan, Malahat, and Langford. So I wasn't able to get a Conservative Party candidate to be a guest. So what I'd like to do is just start with asking you the same questions I asked them.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, and one was, I'll go through all 3 parties, why would a Green government be good for the CRD?
That's a good question.
Some of the local issues that overlap with that link to a federal file, for example, they include, wastewater treatment, homelessness, transit issues, tanker traffic, regulating medical marijuana. So there's a whole host of tie-ins.
Okay, can you just lead me through those again, and I'll...
Sure, one is...
Green Party and how they would...
I'm sorry, why would a Green government be good for the CRD?
Okay, and give me the first issue.
Wastewater treatment. Here's the federal backdrop. It's that the CRD has been designated by the current government as a high-risk environment and required to treat at a minimum of secondary level.
And this is to protect the environment.
By 2020.
Right. And who is behind this push to protect the environment but Stephen Harper, who doesn't care about the environment one bit. So, I mean, if a Green government was in and looking at wastewater treatment, I would hope they would push for Victoria, first of all, looking at the science and really deciding whether or not, because from what I understand, it's possible that what is given to us by the ocean, because we just happen to be in a good spot.
A unique as they say, a unique receiving environment.
Yes. San Diego does not.
Similarly.
Yeah. When you start to build, then, I mean, the plan the CRD was giving us was going to be, as far as I'm concerned, $1 billion cost, with zero environmental benefit. So what's the sense of spending the money? Let's spend it somewhere better if there's zero environmental benefit. Let's decide what we have to build in order to get an environmental benefit and then move ahead from there. And if a green government would be willing to look at that question, then they'd be doing something good.
How about, why would a Liberal Party of Canada government be good for the CRD? And you can address that generally, or you can tie it back into the wastewater treatment issue again.
Well, you support the Liberal Party. I'm a member of the NDP, but I don't support them. I honestly don't know if a Liberal government would be good for the CRD. Right. Someone just reminded me of their position on cannabis, which I think is good. The only problem with the Liberal Party is that I remember back when Jean Chrétien was elected, and it turned out that all of his promises were a pack of lies. So, I mean, that's the big problem with me, is how can we possibly believe the Liberal Party when, you know, I mean, that's just the sad fact. I hate to say it, but that's what I think.
How about the NDP government? Never formed government before.
Yeah.
No track record. In the sense of, you know, your criticism.
I think the NDP, like the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, is controlled by the people who really run this country, which is, I think, corporate Canada. So I don't trust the NDP either. I mean, I'm a member of the NDP, but it's like the party and the movement has been taken over by a bunch of professional politicians who are doing very well, and the strategists and backroom boys and girls. And they're having a good time. They've taken over the party. The party has nothing to do anymore, I don't think, with a lot of the people who believed in the NDP and what it should mean. So what will the NDP do? I don't know. If they're willing to be democratic and listen to what the people of the city want, then they'll do something good, I hope. But if they're taking orders from above, which I think is very possible, then they'll screw us, just like everybody else.
Well, in terms of the what they've said, we'll just focus in on a local issue that, in this particular case, differentiates the three parties, and it's around legalization of marijuana. And the way that it impacts us at this particular point in time is the regulating of medicinal marijuana outlets. And Victoria has recently said that it would follow Vancouver's lead on this issue, right? So just looking at the positions of the NDP, who have said that they will decriminalize marijuana, as opposed to the Liberals, who have promised to legalize marijuana. The Conservatives have said that they will keep the current laws, and the Greens have also suggested that they would legalize marijuana. So there's an issue from four parties. There's an issue with, you know, the promises from those four parties. What are you inclined to do there in terms of how you cast your vote?
On that issue, I would vote, I think, for a party that would legalize marijuana. Although the sad thing is, I don't know what the meaning is of legalization compared to decriminalization. So, you know, it's...
Decriminalization means that the substance remains illegal, but if you're caught with it, you don't. You may get a fine, but you're not going to get have a criminal record.
Okay, and how about the growing of it under that?
The growing of it, and the selling of it, and the reaping of the profits, still remain in the hands of
drug gangs.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, and the NDP's position, my party's position, is decriminalization.
Decriminalization.
So, you know, it's funny, they never ask me what I think. I get emails from them sometimes twice a day, the NDP, okay. My party. I get emails sometimes twice a day asking for money, but never asking, which means that all the members never get asked what they think. So I don't support decriminalization, then, although it's better than what we've got now. But if others are going to legalize, which is more, is that what they've done in Colorado and Washington?
They've done it in Washington State. They've done it in Colorado.
Okay.
It's legal. There are different sort of regulatory mechanisms in place. What I hear is that Colorado, in terms of a state that has most got it right, if you will, it's them. They have seemed to have nailed some of the problems associated with legalization.
Then I would support the Green Party and the Liberal Party's position on legalization. My favorite place where it's legalized is actually the city of Washington, D.C., the people of Washington, D.C.
The District of
the
Columbia.
district, yeah.
Right.
So they actually voted to legalize, and now those crooks in Congress who sit there passing laws making it illegal, they're free to step out of the Congress and have a puff.
Okay, so another issue that links federally is around homelessness and affordable housing.
Okay.
So it's certainly a Victoria issue because
It certainly is, and for every other city in this country.
Well, in the sense that Victoria is the downtown for the region.
Oh yeah, for this region, it's mostly Victoria. That
Yeah,
gets
so
hit
it's the
by it.
downtown. So it has to deal with this issue, on a disproportionate scale compared to the
Yes.
other. So Victoria Mayor Lisa Helps lamented that something, as she says, quote, something is not working if a city government is having to say, oh, where are we going to put our temporary tent city? And in this particular instance, it was Topaz Park.
Yeah, she's
right?
absolutely right.
She says something is fundamentally wrong with this country if we're having this conversation at the local level.
She's absolutely right.
So is there something fundamentally wrong with this country?
Yes, there is. And the fundamentally wrong thing with this country is that the people who run this country have deliberately created homelessness. And once again, I say that's corporate Canada, who control the politicians and own the media. So they've just foisted this thing on us over the last 25, 30 years. They've created it and they won't let us solve it. That's the problem. So you want me to comment on the four parties?
Sure.
Well, I mean, it's clear that on this issue, the Conservatives support homelessness. That's all you can say. They support it. And when I say the Conservatives, I don't even mean the MPs. It's just Harper, because he runs the party. And it's the same with all the parties. They're run by the party leader. It doesn't matter what the people we elect want. But anyways, the Conservatives are very bad. The Liberals are the ones who started the process off back in the 1990s when, in order to slay the national debt, they took the corporate plan, which was to begin the process of cutting social programs, followed by cutting taxes, followed by cutting social programs, followed by cutting taxes. That's the road we've been on since Jean Chrétien came to power. And the end result is what we see in terms of homelessness. It's all over the place. But the rich are doing great.
Okay, so then cut to the Green Party. I mean, in terms of looking for, are they different than the other parties, or
I don't
basically
know.
the same,
I
or?
would hope they would try to solve it. I don't know. And the NDP, I mean, they have no track record either. So I know here in BC, when they were elected back in 1991, they followed the corporate agenda 100%. They did what they were told, which was to attack the poor, close hospital beds, and so when you look at their provincial governments and what they've done provincially, it's difficult to trust them nationally, but who knows?
So in terms of other local issues that are impacted by the federal government, federal jurisdiction, one is tanker traffic. So I'm always struck by how pipelines to our west, or proposed pipelines to our west coast, and tanker traffic are often treated as somehow separate issues. There's the pipeline, and then there's the increased tanker traffic. And I'm thinking, well, you really can't talk about those as two separate entities because they're one and the same process. It's just that the tanker traffic is kind of like the extension of the pipeline, right? If you got no pipeline, then you got no increased tanker traffic. You have a similar take?
Yeah, I think they have to be one issue.
And in terms of a party that's best going to address that issue, what you're thinking 2 months out from an election?
Well, again, I'd say the Conservatives I mean, the destruction of the planet seems to be on their agenda, and that's where the pipelines and the tankers are taking us. The NDP and the Liberals, I would expect they'd be just about the same, maybe a little better, I don't know, but in the same direction. The Greens, I assume, would be the best.
Because
Isn't that what they're supposed to be all about? If they're not going to be the best, we're really doomed. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't read the party platforms. I just know they're green.
what about this notion that's very popular these days of building more refineries in Canada? There's a couple being touted in Alberta, and you know the argument: why should we export raw bitumen to offshore refineries where they do all the value-added work and reap the benefits? Why don't we do the value-added processing in Canada and ship out finished product? Number one, you make more money. Number two, you
Create more jobs.
create more jobs. And number three, if there is an accident, the product it's all relative. I appreciate that, but it's going to be a less problematic substance to clean up than diluted bitumen, dilbit.
Well, unfortunately, with refineries, even if there isn't an accident, they're all complete and total environmental disasters. So, I mean, the amount of poisoning, you know, to tell you the truth, I don't even want to talk about that issue anymore because
So you don't want to talk about what?
about the issue of refineries or pipelines. What we should be talking about in this election is how do we move past this insane situation that we're in, which is all about tar sands, and nobody even dares call them tar sands. You have to call them oil sands, or they won't let you on TV. You know, the planet seems to be in very serious environmental difficulty, and I think what we've got to do is move away from fossil fuels as fast as we possibly can, and move away from nuclear even faster. And the most easy and efficient way to do this is to simply consume less. That's we have to begin consuming less, like 50 years ago. But so, I mean, that's the issue. You know, I don't. If the parties are going to seriously discuss refineries, I'm not going to vote for those parties. I'll vote for the party that's going to close them down.
And that would be?
I would assume the Green Party, but I don't know. Certainly not the Liberals, certainly not the NDP, and certainly not the Conservatives.
Okay, so you don't have to reveal this today, but is that the way you're trending in terms of voting towards the Greens?
Actually, I stopped voting quite a few years ago. And I haven't voted provincially, federally, or municipally in most elections now.
So you're informed?
Yeah, as much as the next.
Well, you're fairly passionate about certain
Yeah, I'm
issues.
interested.
You're interested, and yet you're not going to vote. So how does any of your interest or insight or concerns get beyond just you? If you
Well,
don't
if I
vote?
did vote, it wouldn't matter. That's why I don't vote, because I really, one reason I don't vote is that I refuse to participate in the sham or the charade, as some people call it anymore, that we are a democracy and it matters who we vote for. I really don't think it does. Although I say, yeah, let's get rid of Harper, I'm with everybody else. But you know, I mean, there's nothing to vote for, although I may actually vote Green in this election if it looks like a close race in my riding.
But if any election was going to count as sort of exceptional circumstances, wouldn't the threat of another Harper 4 years and the thought of maybe possibly getting past a first past the post voting system into some sort of proportional representation, wouldn't that be enough to get you to vote?
Yeah, but honestly, I just don't believe any of them anymore. Even, I mean, I've heard, I'm not sure this is correct, but I've heard it from, I think, 2 different sources, that in Alberta, with the NDP has said that bringing in proportional representation is what they're going to do. In Alberta, I've heard, and again, I'm not sure it's true, but I've heard it twice, proportional representation was on the platform of the provincial NDP, but 2 or 3 months before the election, when I guess the fix was in and they knew they were going to be elected, they removed it from the platform. So I just don't know.
Jack, you know the signal I just got from the camera person, and it's the wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in. Okay. That concludes today's edition of the CRD in Context.